Healthcare, Walmart, Salem Crossing, Hoosier Uplands, Americans for Prosperity, Mama Roses, Fox Pearly Wealth Management, Dr. Black's Eye Associates, Dr. Minnie Gunn, Leader One Financial, NMLS 12007, and we are an equal housing lender.
Yay! Thank you to our great sponsors. Camissa, tell me, did you have a wonderful Christmas?
Yes, we did.
Yay.
Yes. Brinley's age is super exciting
I
right
know.
now.
What does she think? She's...
So she loves Christmas.
Yes.
And we were busy with, family, doing stuff pretty much every day leading up to it and after. But one thing we're still struggling with right now is she's not sure why Rosie, her elf, is not coming anymore. Like her elf on the shelf.
Yeah.
So we're working through that.
The struggle bus is real.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like last night she's like, well, is Rosie gonna be here tomorrow then? And
my goodness.
No. She's gone.
She had to go back with Santa.
For a year.
You know what I mean? Santa called all the elves back up to the North Pole.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, what did she think of Santa? Did she...
Yes, yesterday still she yelled out the door and was like, Santa, I'm still being nice.
So, I love that. I was going to say, it's got to be all year round.
Yes.
Every morning you must yell out the door. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, he knows you're being nice, Brinley, it's fine.
I love that. Well, it was funny because Jameson come running up to me. I made it on the nice list.
Yeah.
I got gifts.
You're like, good job.
I know.
Good job,
I know.
buddy.
Well, it was a struggle bus,
Hey, that's an accomplishment.
It really was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I laughed so hard at that. That was great. I was like, yes, you did, buddy. You did.
Yeah.
You did. All right, we're on to the 28th day of December, Camissa. This is Call a Friend Day.
Oh, okay.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, I should call one.
I know. It's hard sometimes because we get so busy, don't we?
Yes.
And like there's people that are near and dear, and I know you have a lot of friends and people that you really and you really would like to get caught up with, but it's so hard to get on that phone and talk when there's like little time.
Yes. Yeah, and it's like you want them to have your undivided attention, but sometimes that's hard, or to have theirs or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. Holy Innocents Day. Ooh, National Card Playing Day. You like playing card games?
I'm not very good at them, but I don't dislike them.
I love a game of euchre.
So I've tried to learn euchre a lot. Brady's patience is very thin with my euchre skills.
Goodness.
So
that's a true marriage test, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I just can't get it. But they played euchre on Christmas Eve, so that was fun, and he enjoyed it.
I love to play euchre.
Yeah. He enjoyed company that could actually play, I think.
There you go. Somebody that made it a little competitive.
Yeah.
Euchre, I just love playing euchre.
Yeah.
I don't, I have a blast with that. So that's my favorite. National Chocolate Candy Day. So what's your favorite chocolate candy?
Probably just a good old Reese's.
Oh, you can't beat Reese's. Yeah, I know. It just like works together.
Yeah.
I would say on my end, anything that's sitting in front of me.
Yeah, you're like anything chocolate.
I got this massive chocolate cake I got for Christmas, and it's huge, and it just like it just keeps growing. I mean, there's bites being taken out of it, or pieces taken out of it, but it just keeps growing.
Yeah, it's not going away.
It's not going away. It's like huge, massive. Yeah. National Chocolate Candy Day, National Download Day. All right, National Short Film Day.
Okay.
Pledge of Allegiance Day. I love that.
Yeah.
For sure. So those are some history. That's different that it's this date, on this date. So get out and enjoy for sure. And it is a terrific Thursday. And the way I understand it, Camissa, this rain that we are experiencing right now is going to kind of go into maybe some flurries. And you said you thought you saw some.
Yeah, so I was sitting there this morning in the car, and I thought, not full on sleet or anything, but there was definitely some forming to the rain, the precipitation.
Something's happening. Something's brewing.
Something. Yeah. Yeah, because I was like, is it snowing?
Is it?
Yeah. So I don't know if it's snow or just a little sleet or what, but
I think something's right around the
something.
corner.
It's cold. It's cold.
And there were some that were without electricity this morning.
Yeah.
Me. So, but that's okay. We're not complaining, just explaining. And it was a squirrel that got onto one of the, what do you call it? The
Transformers.
Transformers, yeah. They got onto the transformer, and those little squirrels, they like to nibble.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I know.
One little animal could do so much damage so quickly.
But I think of Christmas Vacation.
Oh,
that probably did not end well.
Yeah, we watched that on Christmas.
Yeah, that probably did not end well, right?
That's a classic.
Yes, it's very much a classic, but I'm going to guess that probably more than likely the squirrel, didn't
make it. Is that where you're going with that?
I hate to say it, but I don't know. You know what I mean? Yeah, probably not ending well for the squirrel. But we do have electricity back now. So
Yes.
you
do?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
that was quick. Look at them.
No, it was all not. I mean, it was hours.
Oh.
But
I thought it went out this morning. But still, at least they got
early
back
this
on.
morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not complaining, just explaining.
Yeah.
All good. You know
All
what I mean?
good.
That's why, thank goodness, we have McDonald's and McDonald's coffee, right?
Yes, exactly.
Love it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Also, so anyway, hats off to them, and thank you to all the workers out there for any time. You know, and of course, as winter goes on, there's going to be more of this kind of stuff. Not necessarily squirrels, but we know ice and snow and all that. So I always pray for all of those up there in those buckets doing that, and it's so cold, and that's such a dangerous job. So.
Yeah, it's really challenging too.
Yeah. So hats off to them, and thank you for all they do. Yeah, you don't realize how much you miss electricity till you don't have it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's like we're pioneers if we don't have it.
Yeah. Thou thinkest thou needs to make a fire.
Yeah. I wouldn't even know where to start.
To feed the young ones.
Yes.
Might need to cook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like if I don't have electricity, I just either text my mom or my mother-in-law. I'm like, hey, we're coming over.
We're on our way.
And if they don't have electricity, then I drive all the way to my papa's in Mitchell, and 9 times out of 10, we're not having the same problem.
Same problems. I love that. We will find a way.
Road trip.
We will find a way. I've seen, like, people, though, that really, like, whenever there's, like, you know, been without power before in this community, and, like, people have really been, like, they've been...
They get so creative.
Well, yeah, they've used, like, their grill,
and
went out there and used their gas grill and made supper, and actually had beautiful food.
Yeah, you're like, wow.
That was good usage.
Yeah.
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 They're survivors, and I took notes of who they are, so if I ever need survival information, I can contact them.
Absolutely.
Could you help me in such a situation? Or if there is something, you could always go to their house, because you know they're going to survive.
Yep.
Yep, for sure.
Yep.
Faux show. All right, also, this was kind of cool, a cool story. There was a rare duck that's typically found in Antarctica that was found right here in Greenfield, Indiana. You know where Greenfield, Indiana? It's up north, Greenfield, right?
Is it by Indianapolis?
I think so. That, you got Greenwood, but in there Greenfield, I think there's some greens up there.
I don't know.
Greenfield, I think it's up by Indianapolis. But it's actually, isn't that cool? It's a duck that's found in our Antarctica.
Yeah, so did it fly here?
Well, they don't know how it got here. So the 1 pound long-tailed duck was a little girl, and she was found in the middle of the road in Greenfield, about 25 miles east of Indianapolis. So it's 25 miles east. Okay. Of Indianapolis, said the Hancock Wildlife Rescue and Rehab, a nonprofit wildlife rescue group. They said that, let's see here, the wildlife rescue group identified the animal as a female sea duck and said that they are normally found in Antarctica, the northern coastal region.
There we go. That's pretty neat.
I wonder what she was thinking.
I was going to say, so if she's a baby,
I know.
Then, like, are her parents here too, and we've just not found them?
Wow.
Yeah, mind-blowing.
Mind-blowing, yeah.
Because, how old was she?
They said a year, right?
Oh, I guess then maybe she could have flown.
I don't know how long, did they, wait, she was a weird, typically found, about a young, no, they didn't say how old. She was rescued by, she was rescued by a young girl in Greenfield, Indiana. She's a 1 pound long-tailed duck, which the little girl said she found her in the middle of the road. I don't know how old she was. Okay, maybe they don't know the age of the bird.
Yeah.
I don't know how you tell the age of a bird.
I also don't.
Well, that's an old bird.
Yeah. Unless you just look at it and it looks like it's been through some things. You're like, okay, you're probably experienced.
Did you just survive Christmas?
Yeah.
Or did you just make it through Christmas? We
you
all are looking like old birds after Christmas, right?
Yeah.
Don't look at us after Christmas. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, so the shelter said that they did some blood on her, and they found out that they didn't find any wounds, but she was being looked after at the shelter so that they could return her home. It said there were, I guess there were some retention ponds in the area where she was found, but no real bodies of water. She was literally in the middle of town. So they actually, I think they gave her a bath in a pie pan. And
What? This bird is like, where am I and what is going on?
it was a pie. Hang on, my dad did this. We're going to embellish this story. It was a pie that was eaten at Christmas that finished, after they finished.
No. No, it wasn't. Are you lying?
She's lying.
Okay.
I'm lying. I'm embellishing.
She's lying. Third person.
I'm embellishing. How funny was that? Like, after the last crumb
I was like,
of
did
pie,
they really put that?
Thou thinkest thou shalt put the duck in the pie. Thank goodness they didn't put it in a pan. That would be dangerous
Yes.
in the kitchen, right?
Yes.
Anyway, that's sad. I wouldn't be cooking her. Anyway, so that she took a bath in a pie pan, which I don't think a pie pan is very deep.
It's not very
deep, right?
No.
I would think a cake
So
pan.
she's small.
She's little.
She's little.
She's little.
She couldn't have flown here. Her parents are here.
Yeah. Oh, look at you. Now that's something. That's something. Her parents are somewhere around here.
Yeah, we're going to find them.
I like Finding Nemo, you know.
Yes.
Go on the hunt for her. Let's see here. The duck is very weak, and so they gave her medication. They gave her some TLC and R&R, rest and tender loving care, and some good food. Once that she regained her strength and finished her meds, she was more than likely to be back into the wild again. So we're hoping that she'll feel better soon and she can hitch a ride with Santa back to the North Pole. The shelter had earlier said later on Tuesday, December the 26th, which would have been 2 days ago, right? Today's Thursday. The Wildlife Rescue Group released her into the water where she could be taking several dives, and she's paddling in the water on the videos that they showed. So there we go.
There we go.
Yay! So they all lived happily ever after.
Yeah.
I wonder, like, on ducks, like, I don't know much about ducks. I love ducks, though. You know, I want a duck.
Mm-hmm.
But I want a duck.
You really do?
Oh, I want a duck. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I really don't know what to do with a duck. You know what I mean?
I could see you walking a duck
You think-
with like a leash.
I would try.
Yeah.
I would try.
I could absolutely see that. And you dressing the duck?
Oh my goodness, a real duck, yeah.
Yeah.
Not,
a
concrete,
fake duck.
Well, they have those concrete ducks, you know. No, I want a real duck, yeah. I just think they're hilarious, okay?
Yeah.
But I really don't want all of the droppings that go along with the duck, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that that's probably my degree of difficulty. So, yes, so I think that her going on and doing her thing on a...
Maybe you could potty train the duck.
I don't know. You know
You'll
what I
have to look into that
Now,
for you.
I have heard, this is what I've heard. I've heard that chickens, which I've never done it, I don't want a chicken, I want a duck, okay? There's a big difference, okay?
There is a big difference.
Big difference. So, I've heard that chickens can be potty trained.
So a duck can. If you find the right, perfect duck, we could definitely potty train it for you.
If I got a smart duck.
Yes.
If
you got this little duck from Antarctica, we could potty train it.
I know. I don't think he would like our summers though, right?
No.
He'd have to be in the air.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want him.
He could come here with you.
I would want him to go. I don't know. I feel bad. No, I want him to go back home. He wants to be with his people. You know what I mean? He'd be like, you know what I mean? He'd be like, what am I doing down here? Right? So, but I think, yeah, they say that you can potty train chickens, and they say that they are really, like, they are smart, and they really, like, get to know you. Like a personal, like a dog would be almost.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. Knowing me, I'd get the dumbest duck in the...
You'd be like, come on, walk this way.
I said this way.
Yeah.
We'd go over that way.
Just Becky arguing with her duck again.
That's right. I'm late to get to the station because we were arguing, the duck and I.
Yeah, wouldn't get in the car.
Well, and if he started like bark, like ducks, like how they start like.
You were gonna say barking, weren't
barking,
you?
quacking, whatever they do. I probably would laugh so hard I wouldn't even be able to do anything. I'd probably be laughing at that. It would probably make me laugh a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know, something about their feet and just the way they walk and they waddle, da 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 da. Have you ever seen them? I just think I want a nice duck though.
A nice smart duck.
As you watch them hatch, I need the smartest, the nicest one.
Yeah, which one do you think is the smartest?
Yeah. Well, you're probably the one that hatches first. I don't know, maybe not. I would get that last one,
The runt.
That's me. Yeah, that's the one I would get. Which I would love, but don't need it. Do not need it. But anyway, so they all lived happily ever after. The duck is back, went back with Santa, just like your elf. They went back with Santa, so You'll have to tell her that the duck went back with Santa too.
Yes.
Santa had quite a bit of sleigh. On
Yeah,
his sleigh.
for sure.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the new year coming up. And Camissa, let's talk about 2023 as far as, Leader One and all of the mortgage loans and stuff. And it's crazy because, in the beginning of the year of last year, 2023, we heard like people talking about, oh, these mortgage rates, and everything was going to be, skyrocketing. And we saw like where houses were just like double what you used to pay for a house.
Right.
Especially in this area.
Yeah, so I think that would be the low interest rates that we experienced in like 2021 and then part of 2020, after that all kind of drove that. That would be where our inflation and appreciation all came from. But in the end of 2022 and then 2023 is when prices or interest rates started to rise. And so with those inflated prices as well as the inflated interest rates, that was obviously a shock to a lot of people. And I will say, even though it might have been indifferent to the years that Autumn had experienced, overall, we were still generating loans and we were still able to make things work for people. And in those times now, once rates do come back down a little bit, and they're starting to, we're just going to be able to refinance them. And so to an extent, it was still better for them to buy, because now if prices go back up due to the rates coming back down, then they still got the house at a lower price than maybe they would today, and now we'll just refinance their interest or their loan to get them a lower interest rate. So
what did people say in 2023? What were you hearing? Like, what did people, when they came in your office, what did a lot of them say?
Just essentially what the media was saying. I mean, you would hear a lot about like doom or gloom type things, and we would kind of have to talk them off the ledge as far as that goes. And then I would say there were quite a few people who talked about how high the interest rates were going, where were they going to end up, were we going to see over 10s again, double-digit interest rates. And essentially we heard a lot about the recession. So everybody was like, oh, it's going to be another 2008 type thing. So yeah, that was a lot, because at the end of the day, even though I've done lending for a little bit longer, I'm still relatively new to mortgage. So there was a lot of times even Autumn was like having to get back in my head and be like, no,
yeah,
and so she's taught me a lot as far as that goes too.
Right. Yeah, you two work very well. Yeah. So I guess the thing going back, let's, when we started, from the end of 22, like they predicted 23, they were like, oh, we're going to be in a big recession. And we kind of started, I think this is right, I might be wrong on this, like maybe December of 22, and then on into January, they talked more about the recession going to be and all that. And we made it through it. I think that's something that we need to look at our positives. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
Those are things that we just really need to focus on. Do you feel?
Yeah. And I mean, interest rates had to go up because we were at 2% and that sort of thing, where everybody likes to see them.
And that was during
it's
COVID.
Not ideal.
Right? That was that during COVID, or like right after COVID, or kind of towards
so like I think COVID was like March 2020, so like towards the end of 2020, and then pretty much all of 2021 is when we saw those really low rates. And so that, as ideal as that might be to some people, just on their payments and such, it's like that's not practical for the economy. And that's what I mean about like refinancing. Even if they do have a higher rate, once they come down a little bit, we can always refinance after 6 payments.
Okay.
So not necessarily 6 months, but after 6 payments are made, then we can do that. So now that they went, of course, over 8s and stuff, that's very shocking coming from such a low number. But kind of like what I was going back to what I was saying, as far as like people saying, oh, we're going to see them over double digits, that sort of thing. We didn't ever see them there. So that's, like you said, if we're looking at the positives, we didn't see them there, and they're going back down now.
Yeah.
So we do have that to be thankful for, because we very well could have saw them there, and now they're starting to go back down.
Right. I think that's something that, and I think a lot of us, and you go back to the COVID time, and even after the year after whatever COVID, people were so unsure and didn't know, and of course we had a lot of people losing their jobs, people relocating, there was a lot of things that, if you will, a lot going on.
Yeah.
So I think that, and then of course we know fear, which, you don't really want to step out and do something major in your life like that when you're a little afraid about stuff, when you're unsure, the uncertainty.
Absolutely. And I think we saw some of that like this previous year because rates were higher.
Right.
And people were hesitant because they're like, well, where's the economy going to end up?
Right.
And like I said, if there was talk of a recession or anything, people were nervous or scared to buy because of the high interest rate, because of the talk of recession and multiple other things.
Right. Well, and then like just groceries alone.
Oh yeah, I mean inflation in general. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
Just like living.
Yeah.
Was so much. The cost of living was so much more.
Absolutely.
And that's very scary for families and anybody.
Yes.
To take on something, as and to make a commitment.
Yes.
To a mortgage loan.
Yeah.
Whenever they're trying to figure out, sometimes how to buy groceries.
Yeah. So I would say on the flip side of that, though, like Autumn and I were talking the other day about like 2021 and like, we're of course thinking of our 2024 goals and everything. And so we want to put in hindsight our previous couple years.
Sure.
And she was saying, well, 2021, really isn't even comparable because that's whenever those interest rates were so low and, it's not a practical year to use for comparison. Because everyone was jumping at the bit to buy at a low interest rate or to refinance at a low interest rate. Maybe they haven't refinanced in 10 years. Mm-hmm. Cutting their interest rate that low would have done them good.
Right.
So we were talking about that, and then we got onto the topic of sorry, that distracted me.
Did she message you?
Yes. We got onto the topic of bidding wars and like what buyers faced in 2021.
A little bit more that.
Yeah, so like in 2021, because the interest rates were so low and people were wanting to buy and buy and buy, why the rates were low, and maybe because interest rates were low, they were able to buy more. They had more buying power. So whenever it comes to your debt to income, if your interest rate is lower, that obviously plays into what your payment would be, and so they could buy more. So like maybe they got approved for 180, but with a low interest rate they could go all the way up to 240. They have more buying power. Whenever that was
a bigger house or more,
a bigger price, a larger price, a more expensive house, because their payment would be lower because their interest rate is lower.
So low. Okay.
Yeah. So we got onto the topic of, everyone's out there. It's a very competitive market. If you're the buyer, you had bidding wars. So whenever a house is for sale, you had multiple buyers. And say the asking price is $225, you had people going $30,000 to $40,000 over asking price just to compete to get that home.
I know, that's crazy. Yeah, if you watch HGTV and you watch that, I saw a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
Like they would ask, I'm just going to say like, $200,000.
Yeah.
And then somebody may put an offer for $250.
Yeah, and
that's crazy. It's hard to get your head wrapped around that.
But that's not just on HGTV. That was around here.
No, I know.
Yeah.
But just to watch, the mortgage. Cause I'm not in your,
Well, yeah, but you have to think those houses that are featured on TV too. Like if that's happening in Washington County, Indiana, anywhere around here, like I can't imagine what the inflation would be, in somewhere that's more expensive to live.
Yeah.
While
so it was happening here in our county too.
Oh, absolutely.
So then how does that work? So like if you were selling a house and you put, I'm just going to use the word, I'm just going to do 200,000.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said I'll give you 210 for it, and someone else said that they'd give 215.
Mm-hmm.
Then we just go back and forth until the highest person will say.
The seller would pick what offer they wanted. Okay. But as the seller of the home, if you can get more money because you're going to turn around and buy more or go invest or whatever, it's of course more appealing. But as the buyer, it can be very dangerous because if your property doesn't appraise for that and they can't insure it for that and you have a loss, I mean, there's multiple different
You have to pay the difference.
Risks. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
If your house doesn't appraise for
Are we still doing this?
No, not right now.
Are we done doing that?
No, but I'm saying like in 2021, that was a big issue. You had, and when rates were that low, that was a very, very large hurdle, I would say, for buyers, because if you don't have $20,000 or $30,000 that you could put over your appraisal value, then and other buyers do, that kind of just knocks you out of the bracket sort of thing.
Right.
So
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Very interesting, for sure.
Yeah.
So then, okay, so that was, and so then we got over that hump, and we started seeing them go up. And then the thing that I think we have to keep in mind, like you said, it didn't go into double digits. We didn't hit that. We didn't hit, did we?
I don't believe any in our office went over double digits now.
Yeah. So those are good positives.
Yeah,
I
they're
mean, that's a
very
good
good
positive.
positives to look at.
And if you go back, so really, to be honest, like that 2% and all that, that wasn't even, like, that's so abnormal.
Exactly.
You can't base that on anything.
Yeah.
You just need to take that out of your mind.
Correct.
Put that over there.
Correct.
Put that over there in the sideline.
Yeah, because, I mean, fives are normal.
Uh-huh.
Twos are not normal. And, yeah.
So, I think people heard about it and got excited about it.
Oh, yeah.
And then some people acted on it, and I think that that's probably why everybody now thinks.
Well, and so then you also have on the flip side of that, the buyers that purchased in 2020 to 2021, you know, even if it was their first home or their second home or whatever, they're not wanting to move now. Because if they move, they lose that rate.
Yes.
So if they sell...
Yeah.
They lose their 2.25% rate, and they have to buy when it's 6 or 7%, even though at the time they might need a bigger family home or they might need to relocate for job purposes. They don't want to lose their rate. So it's caused a little bit of almost like a buyer's anxiety to sell, I guess is the best thing. And so the best way to say it is, so they're wanting to stay in that house because they've locked that rate in, and it's like a once-in-a-lifetime type of thing.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's no way around it of keeping that rate and getting and selling that house.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yep.
That makes sense, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
that's different. So if you bought the house,
it kind of hinders some movement, I think, because, you know, like I said, they've locked that in and they're like, we're gonna die here.
Well, because that's a great price, you know, and then also, I mean, but it might be something that they bought and they didn't think it, because they bought it quickly because of the 2%.
Oh, yeah.
And then
at the time it might have been perfect for them.
You know, is that going to be your forever home?
Yeah.
But those are definitely things to think about.
Yes. Autumn said we didn't even cross 9% on our interest rates as far as our office. The 8.25 was the highest we had to do.
Yeah.
So that is good. We barely made it over 8.
Years ago, I don't think that was not unheard of.
No.
You know what I mean?
I remember whenever I got my interest rate, my grandpa said, like, oh, my first interest rate was 14%, and I thought that was so good.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the year now off the top of my head that he said that, but he said he did his mortgage or whatever. But whenever your interest rate is lower, it's easier to funnel more towards your principal balance. So that's nice, too, is if we look at it, you know, if 6 to 7% interest rate is normal, then the more that you funnel as an extra payment, then that goes to your principal balance rather than interest. So we could definitely still be looking at those 10 to 14% like our grandparents, great-grandparents, or whatever did, but thankfully we don't have to right now.
Yeah, very thankful.
Yeah.
Well, according to, I did do a little bit of research, Camissa, because I knew you were coming in this morning. Fannie's Mae forecast. Fannie Mae, is that pretty reliable, Fannie Mae's?
Yeah.
Okay. Forecast suggests that 30-year mortgage rates will fall into the 6.1 to 7% range in 2024.
Yeah, I have heard a lot of talk as far as optimistically we'll, you know, stay at what we would consider a normal interest rate range. And I would say that's pretty spot on, 6.1 to 7.
Okay, and NAR believes rates will fall a bit further, ending up 6.3% to 7.5% range.
Yeah, so about the 6.5 to 7.5.
The MBA forecast predicts that a 30-year mortgage rate will drop to 6.1% by the end of 2024.
Yeah, so exciting. They're saying that they're gonna, to me, that reads that they're just gonna stay more regulated. We're not gonna see necessarily a small inflation where they were at the 8s or anything, but 6 to 7 is a good range. It's a good place for us to be at.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
and it's normal.
Yeah. That sounds, is that what you're, like, if I walked in to get a loan today, is that pretty well what you're thinking I would get?
Yeah, and so, like, we're still, I feel like, experiencing people be like, oh, well, I'm just going to wait till interest rates go down. They might not go back down to, you know, they're not going to go back down to 2s. they're probably not going to go back down to 3s and maybe not even 4s. But 6 to 7 is a good range to be at. So, like, I think that's something that, Autumn and I, we try to be very stern on. If you continue to wait for rates to drop and you miss out on your opportunity to buy, then you're continuing to rent and you're not gaining any equity. You're paying someone else's mortgage where they're gaining equity.
Right.
So.
And I think also the houses are going down too. Prices are a little bit more, right? Or are they still up?
I think that honestly just depends. Autumn said that she lost one the other day just because of an escalation clause. But
explain
I think
that. Explain some of that. Yeah.
I think where they just continued to escalate the offer.
Okay.
That, like, pretty much what we talked about before, like a bidding war.
Oh, how do they do that? How does the seller do that? Or you mean there were enough people that
the realtors? That's something that goes on between the realtors.
Okay.
So, and then the agent, and that's another thing we always recommend is using an agent. That way you're very well informed. Anyone that obviously they come in and they say for sure they don't want to use an agent, or if they already have like an agreement with the seller, that's just between them and they're, both parties don't want to use an agent, but we always recommend using an agent. And, of course, we don't pick that, they do.
Sure.
So, but of course, if they need recommendations, we have a few that we, have really liked our experiences with that we always recommend. And they handle the tactics of all of that. So they explain from A to Z, anything that could happen from when you look at homes to when you write your offer to when you get an accepted offer to when you go to the closing table. Right. So they explain all of that. I do think the realtors are really stepping up their game as far as informational stuff that they're putting out there. A few of them that we follow, on Facebook and stuff, because social media is becoming so big, they are really educating the public on different terms that they use and stuff, and I even learned stuff from them. Mm-hmm. Watching those videos. But like they have different caps that they might offer, so they might say, this is their verbiage. So
yeah.
But they might say, okay, what do you like if this is your first offer and we get word that maybe there's a bigger one on the table, what are you willing to go up to? What's your max offer type thing? Okay. So that's all verbiage that they use and discuss with the buyer. So we just handle necessarily the finance of it. If you're approved up to X amount.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, in the ideal situation, so let's say that this week or next week someone comes in your office and they say, I've got a goal of working, or I'd like to purchase a home in 2024. Mm-hmm. And of course, if I walked in your door and I said that, what would you do? Where would you take me from there?
So of course we would talk about like the timeline, their expected timeline and stuff. We would pretty much just gather what we could, depending on their timeline would actually probably determine what we do. If it's soon or in the next few months, we would look at all their liabilities compared to their income, that sort of thing, and go ahead and get, okay, well, with your current situation, this is what we could pre-qualify you up to. If you are able to pay down X debts, then we would gain this much more buying power, or we could raise your pre-approval is essentially what that means. And just make sure that they're in a situation that they want to be in when they're ready to buy. So essentially we would just prepare them to be where they want to be. If they're not where they want to be, or if they say, okay, well, I'm really looking and I'm thinking that I'm probably going to be in the, let's say, 200 to 225 price range, and say we're a little bit below that, then we can say, okay, well, this is, if we're able to, if it's not an income issue, then if it's a liability issue, we need to eliminate these debts so that we can qualify you for this amount that you're thinking you want to be at. Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think that's what you're saying there. I hope that people are taking that in, because I think that's great, because I think that if somebody has that desire to want to own and buy a home, and then someone can help them like you, or if they walk in and they say, hey, and you were like, well, you need to clean some things up before you can take a mortgage. You know what I mean? I think that's a blessing that they have that you can help them kind of say, let's try to get some of these payments down before you take on this big payment.
Yeah, absolutely. And ultimately, like you said, that's just better. Like, that's better for them once they're in that position.
Yeah.
It's like once you take on this large of a payment, it's going to be better for you. It'll be easier for you to focus on the minimum amount of payments that you can, especially if you're gaining a large payment like what a mortgage can typically be.
Right.
Because that's most normally someone's largest liability.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
That's
so
the biggest purchase you'll ever make, probably. Yeah. More.
Yeah. So it's like, if we are able to, kind of strategize getting you to the point where you have less debt or liability when you take that large of one on, then better for everyone.
Right. Well, and I think it's nice that's a good start.
Yeah.
This is, you're the okay, like if you were playing a board game, you'd be the first place to start.
Yeah.
Don't you feel?
We're
no,
go.
Really. Well, the very first.
If we're playing Monopoly, we're go.
Yeah, you go. That's exactly right. Well, the reason I say that is because, first of all, like, I wouldn't want to go house shopping. It's just like any time. Okay, like just going shoe shopping. You got to know how much money you're have allowed yourself to spend.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're house hunting, you don't want to look at an overpriced house for you.
Yeah.
But you also didn't want to go under, you know what I mean? So you need to know that. That's something that you need to know. And it's not fair to the realtor when they're asking you, what are you thinking?
Yeah, so to my knowledge, I think kind of like whenever you reach out to a realtor, they'll of course like gather your information, kind of build a portfolio for you just like anyone so that they can build that relationship. But to my knowledge, they all have like recommended lenders they use, and they're pretty much saying the same thing as what you just stated, like, hey, we have to have a starting point. So before we go look at these houses, let's see what your budget is. Let's see, even if you might be pre-qualified or approved up to X amount, is that where you want your payment type of thing? So, and that's something we always discuss, because a lot of people are like, oh, I'm pre-approved up to this. It's like, okay, but are you good with that payment? Like, because you might have great pre-approval odds, but are you going to be good making that payment each month just because the paper and everything breaks down and says you are?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's something, Autumn and I've talked about before. Like, you don't want to be house poor.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
And, you have to remember your lifestyle. You know what I mean? If you have kids, kids...
Yeah. Well, because, in the grand scheme of things, just because what we pull on credit and et cetera in your liabilities show up, that does not really determine your spending style. So if you are a crazy shopper and you love to spend money and you eat out 3 meals a day, that's not all going to be on your credit. So like you said, what are your spending habits? What are your, Yeah.
So what about then, as far as like, what do you think, like, do you see a lot of things that trip people up? Like, okay, like, let's say that you go to a store and they say, would you like to open up a credit card? Mm-hmm. Do you see these tripping people up a lot? Hurting their credit?
So especially around this time, I think Autumn had touched on this a little bit, but that's something that, like, if we have people pre-approved kind of like in the months of November and December, we're like, hey, if you go Christmas shopping and you get 15% off just to open up that credit card, remember that then that's a new line, a new trade line on your credit at that point, and that does change our circumstance of what we pre-qualified you on. So that's something when we give a pre-qualification or anything, we're always like, hey, don't open any new trade lines. Unfortunately, we've had it happen. We've got past it, but sometimes it really does cause a big hiccup. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, if they open a new debt, sometimes it does have to be, it always has to be included in their debt to income going forward. So if that's something that's like a make or break situation and your debt to income was already tight for the loan amount that you had, then yeah, that could really hurt your possibility of buying the home.
Well, because it can be so, like, it sounds so simple. Like, like sometimes, like, oh, they'll say, do you want to save 10% on this?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And it's so
and I'll even just be like, hey, that 10% you're saving to open up that card, might not be worth it. Is it worth losing the opportunity to buy a home just to save
and
$20?
I wondered if that happens, if you see that a lot.
Yeah, yeah. So it's very common, especially this time of the year. You have people shopping. You have people making bigger purchases than they would on a normal daily basis. Just because the gift of giving at this time of year. And so that savings is a little larger because they have larger bills. So I would say, yeah, to your point, it's definitely more, it's happening more this time of year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they don't realize it, you know what I mean?
And most people wouldn't. And honestly, maybe they don't even think at this point they're going to be buying a home. But then, you know, when March, April rolls around, spring, we kind of see an influx of buyers. It's not so nasty outside. People don't care to move.
Yeah, right, yeah.
It's typical for the market to pick up around that time. So then that's whenever they're going to get hit with, okay, well, this is a new trade line. So, yeah.
And I think that if they look at a lot of those, I don't know, just generically saying any one of them, the interest rates on those are a lot. So, if you're making monthly payments on those,
yeah. Yeah,
right?
so it's just like any credit card, I believe. You're talking over 20%.
Whew.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think some credit cards, major credit cards even, are 25 to 27%.
Get out.
I don't know off the top of my head, but
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're very high, and that's
People
what
are running right now to go look to see.
Oh, and I hope they do.
They need to.
Yes, they do, because that's something.
I beg people, please look at your finances.
Yes.
Beg them.
Yes, and it's very important, and I think it's one of those things like, it's not in people's faces necessarily, so it's kind of, I don't know. They don't see what it's doing. But I mean, if you look at someone that has a large balance on their credit card and that balance just continues to capitalize, I mean, we've had to dig people out of tough situations because they're in credit card debt over their necks.
No.
And, it happens so easily, and that's something that it can be very dangerous,
Well,
and it's unsecured at the end of the day. A credit card is an unsecured debt. Most times.
And that means...
So like a car loan, your car is the collateral.
Okay.
And a credit card is a revolving line of credit. There's not necessarily normally collateral to go with it. So like if you get pre-approved or pre-qualified for X credit card with Discover, they're not normally saying, hey, we're going to keep your boat as collateral. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right,
so
right.
It's an unsecured line of credit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very dangerous. Very dangerous.
Yeah.
Well, I think that these are good to know, and I think that a lot of times, people will, and I'm just, talking in general, maybe not realize how bad that can hurt their credit, or realize their interest rate they're paying, and that it's almost like it just keeps, I think of it almost as like a mold. It just keeps growing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, because, like I said, the interest keeps capitalizing.
Yeah, it just keeps on. It's
and
like
then,
it's almost like an endless bowl.
Yeah.
That just keeps.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. That's a good way of putting it. It's mold.
Mold.
It's mold. But yeah, it's whenever it keeps capitalizing. For one, it can be overwhelming.
You can borrow that, Camissa.
I will.
Okay,
I will. I'll be like, if
mold.
I pull credit, I'm like, okay, we're going to do some mold remediation on this credit report, okay?
Mold removal.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I do think that's probably the biggest thing with credit card debt is it's overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times people don't want to hear this. This is not this is not something like when you go, when you sit down with someone, this is not the topic that you really want to talk. Okay? Because
it gets talked about probably more than you realize.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe so, but I'm saying it's not always the most popular, because then people but you want people to realize this.
So I think the hardest part of talking about this is most the time people already realize the situation they're in with credit card debt, but it's kind of like they maybe sometimes just need a little extra push for reality of like, hey, we've got to get this under control, because at this point, if we just avoid it or kind of continue to pay the very minimum payment, which is only your interest, it's just going to get worse.
It's just going to be with you all year life.
So sometimes I think it just is that extra little shove, or maybe not necessarily shove, it depends on the personality, but the extra shove or the extra person in your corner saying you can do this, but you are going to be the one that has to do it.
Right. I think that's what I like the
So it depends on the personality.
Right, and I think that's true. I think it's not necessarily popular, but
Yeah.
it's one of those things that once you start on it and you have a plan of plan of action and you have a plan of attack and how to do this, I always say you can't eat the whole elephant all at once. You got to take a bite at a time.
Yes.
But just keep biting at that. Get that out. And what about, like, I remember, like, we've heard a lot about student loans. Are we still seeing those hurting people, with still, like, holding on to a lot of people?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I feel like, we're still seeing,
I was hoping that was getting better.
Yeah. I do think when they were in, I'm looking for the word, deferment, and people were able to pay, so here's kind of what happened. They had paused the payments. They were in deferment. And so if you did make a payment, it went totally to principal because you weren't being charged your payments / interest on the loans during that X amount of time. I can't remember how long it was now. But what happened was, because there was no required payment, some people just weren't paying them. You have some people that were taking advantage of the situation and funneling money towards it because it ultimately lowered their principal balance, which is the best thing they could have done. Because at that point, they're lowering their principal balance, and so they're essentially paying less finance charges, so they're paying less interest over the life of the loan.
So they're knocking that loan down.
Yes, absolutely. And so then whenever it did, I guess, come off deferment or come back, where they're being charged, that's back on a normal schedule is probably the best way to say it. They had a lower payment. So, or, maybe not necessarily lower payment, they had a lower balance.
Yeah.
And so the interest was, less, and they were able to work towards that. But then, because payments weren't required, you had some people that just weren't paying it. And while that necessarily did not hurt them because they weren't required, so it's not like they had late payments or no payments, but it also didn't help them because their balance was the same it was whenever they were paused 2.5 years ago or whatever. Does that make sense? So some people really took advantage of the situation and really paid down their balances and made some headway, because I think that's
very happy at the end of the day.
Oh, yes. Anybody that did that, I can't think of anyone that probably would have regretted it. I can't think of any reason to.
That's the way to go, yeah.
But I think what hurt is some people, it's not required, it's not going to be held against me, so I'm just not going to make the payment.
Right.
Which, honestly, in the situation, like you said, we didn't know where things were going to go, and so maybe they were hanging on to some of that extra money that they could.
Sure.
To save up and stuff. Right. So it's nothing against them.
No, and you can't
but those people that did knock down those balances when they could and take advantage of the situation, I think they're definitely sitting in a pretty situation that they're happy they did.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Are they, like, and I know that the mortgage loan, I know that this is not your beat, but are they doing a little bit better on advising maybe younger ones on, like, loans, like taking out loans that maybe will be later coming back to?
I don't know, really. Yeah.
I didn't know if you are seeing, like, a little bit of a difference.
Are you saying, like, as far as student loans? Like,
yeah.
Okay.
Just, not saying that, that they're not giving them out. I'm just, are they being a little more
conservative with, hey, you can get this amount, or
yeah, or like, let's be a little more. I'm not sure. Okay, I'm not trying to, but I think probably like your credit cards, they're still out there. They're still doing their thing.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as like loans and stuff for like this, are we seeing a little more where they're
where they're tightening things up a little
bit more so that they can be a little bit more on the list, so they won't have to pay off so much. I mean,
yeah. So I mean, I would say as far as like the last year, I know that there's been comments made in our industry that we're really tightening down whenever the economy gets in the situation we were in. Because we have to make sure that we're always doing what's best for the consumer.
Right.
As far as like the student loans and that sort of thing, I'm not sure.
Right.
On
as
far
seeing as many come in.
Yeah. So, I mean, I really can't answer that because the ones that have came in, they were loans that were given prior, like not recent student loans,
right.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they were still loans that they've probably had for 5 or 6 years or longer.
So maybe like in 6 or 7 years.
We might see some of those people.
We'll put that question on the shelf.
Well, and I think it does make sense because if people are in college right now, a lot of the times you don't have a college student that's pulling out student loans buying a house. They might still be renting, and there's nothing wrong with buying a house. It's especially if you know what your budget is, and you might still be paying that in rent. But I think a lot of them are still possibly renting, or maybe even living at home, or that sort of thing with parents still. We've not saw anyone, I don't think, recently come in that we could gauge that correctly.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that, that those are, things that, like, just for people to be aware of,
Yeah.
and things.
Oh, yeah.
And just to kind of
Let's cross our fingers that maybe some things got tightened.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, because I think it's so common, and, like, and even, whenever I had to apply for student loans and stuff like that, it's like, you think, oh, if I can get that, then yeah, I mean, that's just going to ultimately help me. It's less stress during the school semester.
Right.
I won't have to work as much and stuff, but that's not always the best way to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that is probably the most commonly construed way to look at it, is, okay, yeah, then if you can get that paid for by a loan and get that all under control, that's less out of your pocket. That's less stress of, oh, I have to make X payment or X dollar amount to the school each month or whatever your payment basis is. So
yeah, I think that's the thing that, like, that a lot of people just need to be aware of.
Yeah.
Right? Don't you feel? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think sometimes when you're younger, those lessons are harder to learn.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
And maybe not necessarily whenever you're in the moment or in school, but whenever you're out of school after, and it's like, okay, what's my next step? Am I going to purchase a home or whatever? And then it's like, okay, now your student payments start, because typically you're not paying on those while you're in school. It's when you're graduating. So then,
Yay!
Yeah. So, I mean, absolutely. That's definitely something to be mindful of and take into consideration, and hope that students do have the guidance and resources they need to, help them break that all down for themselves.
Well, and to see what works best for them.
What's best for them.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think that's something that a lot of times, finances, we don't always talk about on that.
Yeah, and I don't think that the resources that are...
I hope they're doing better. Don't you? Do?
Yeah, I definitely hope they're doing better. And I hope that post-graduation is more commonly talked about and available to them. Because, like I said, you're most of the time not paying them until after graduation. And so I hope that, maybe there's something implemented that will say, post-graduation, this is the scenario that you could be looking at. It would be great to say, this would be your payment if you pulled out this loan. And so they can't always say that because capitalization and different stuff with the debt. But just to kind of put that into perspective for the student.
Right.
Because at that point, I mean, we're leaving them with the responsibility of deciding what they want to do and pay that much money for and go to school for and expertise in.
Yeah.
So I think that they need to be given the whole picture.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
Yeah.
And I think, and I'm not trying to be, but I think sometimes it's hard to think about, like when you graduate high school, hard to think about like what's down the road and
yeah.
Oh, this will get me there.
Yeah.
But then you got to remember that
when you're there. Yeah, on X salary, because that's what you're gonna, that's what your career is. Can you afford not only the education that got you to that career and that point, not just the cost of that, but can you afford life at that point?
Yeah. Exactly. No, these are definitely, and this is good wisdom. It's good thoughts. It's good for life lessons. And life lessons, cost money sometimes.
Yeah, they do.
And, so that's part of it.
They can cost a lot of money.
Yeah. Oh, show. So for 2024, what do you think then? Because we're getting close on time, Camissa. But what do you think that what do you predict as far as someone coming in your door? Let's hope that a lot of people come in your door and just want to find out and see if this is a possibility, right?
Yeah. So for 2024, I'm super optimistic. As most people know, 2023 would have been my first year, technically my first full year in the industry.
Boy, you're rocking and socking.
Yeah, so as challenging as it was, I've told Autumn this, and she's made very good points to me about it. As challenging as it was, I think for my first year, it seasoned me well. Of course, she's been in it so long now that she knows the ups, the downs, the roundabouts, all that sort of thing. So we're both hanging on, we're buckling up, and we're both super optimistic about 2024, which I think is great. And we're super, I think, eager to just help everyone we can. Not necessarily even if that means not say, oh, everyone, has to get a mortgage, but just at least talk to them, get in their face, educate them, and just get them a better understanding of if home buying is for them.
Right.
So.
Well, I think 2023 was for your office. You did some changes. You got, a different name. You got some different,
Yeah.
little changes on that. And I think that was kind of a big responsibility, a lot for you guys to do. But you kept on.
Oh yeah, we did.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, you
Yep.
just, you
It didn't
changed
slow us
the
down.
sails of your,
Yeah.
of your boat. But you
So that's
kept
why I
going.
say I think 2023 was very challenging.
Yes.
But
I
in
think Autumn Scott Hall
hindsight,
is ready for 2023 to be gone.
yeah. So I sent her something yesterday, and it said, let me find it here so I can. I said, I saw a quote that said, "This year I made you strong," or God said, "This year I made you strong, and next year I'll make you happy." So
You're gonna make me cry. Oh my gosh, that's so sweet.
yeah.
That's
So like
very
2023,
good, yeah.
I mean, it was challenging. It was hard. Honestly, it sucked.
Yeah.
As far as like the stuff that we faced, but
Yeah.
2024 is a new year.
Yeah.
We didn't let 2023 stop us, hold
Yeah.
us back anything. So
But isn't that like, and what a blessing, like in 2 days, whenever the ball drops and we hit, or 3 days, whatever, or not, I guess a few days anyway. So
yeah, what day is it?
I don't know, whatever. So coming up, when the ball drops, okay, that's all I can say. When the ball drops and like you look at the 2023, you made it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
you were successful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you kept the lights on. You know what I mean? And here's the thing: you made dreams come true for families.
Oh, absolutely. And that's
Really?
another thing is
That's
it's
the
like
thing.
that's what kept us
Camissa,
going.
that would be like, to me, that would be the big piece of chocolate cake.
Yeah.
When you're watching families and knowing that, I always call it like, because I always joke with, I talk about like a turtle shell. Every turtle needs a shell.
Yeah.
So like here what a blessing when you see these
Yep.
families that that their life is just started with a new home.
Absolutely.
I mean,
yeah. And I mean there were a couple deals that, it's like we still talk about it. It's like at the end of the day we're like we did that because there were times, throughout the
Yeah.
transaction that we thought maybe, things were hitting a hiccup or whatever, but it's like we did that. We got that
Yeah.
done even,
Yeah.
when times were hard during it or whatever, we worked through it, we persevered, we got it.
Well, I would think you would have to look back at 2023, and I hope my prayer for you in Autumn is that you're very proud of yourselves and realize you did it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And what a blessing.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Because there was a lot, and I think that you guys stayed the course.
Yep.
And I think that speaks volume of you two.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because sometimes it probably would have been easier to throw in the towel
Oh.
on those long days.
Well, right?
Yeah.
And it's awesome though, and getting loans.
In the grand scheme of things, yeah, it's like that's not an option as much as
no,
on
it's
this
not,
state
yeah,
it
that's
would have
exactly
been.
right. Yeah, it's not,
Yeah.
It's not the way. You're not wired that way.
Yeah.
So I think that
Neither of us are quitters.
No, definitely not. Oh no. And also, I think that that's such a blessing for our community that we have that, and we have you right here, that we have this for this, because we know that that's huge for families.
Yeah.
And for individuals or anybody that that's wanting that mortgage loan.
Yep.
And I think that this speaks volumes of you and Autumn, and how committed you two are, but also how much trust and how much appreciation our community is to you
Yeah.
for doing that.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
we're the same to them, yeah.
Yeah. I think to
Yeah.
me, I would just look back and
Yeah, because at the end of the day we can only do what they allow us to do.
Yeah.
For them, for the community,
Yeah.
and for ourselves, yeah. As far as growth.
yeah. Well, you grew, baby.
Yeah, we did. We got some tough skin,
Yeah,
that's for sure.
That's exactly right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah.
Yep.
I was thinking of Christina Aguilera. It makes you stronger. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
I think that's Kelly Clarkson. But
Yeah.
I love them both. But anyway, for sure. Well, look forward to working with you in 2024 and all the great things. And if anybody's thinking about it or just want to know a little bit of help on their finances to get them to where, if they, maybe not this year, but coming down the road,
Yeah.
Camissa, you and Autumn do a great job of helping people on their budgeting so that they can get where they want to be.
Absolutely.
So, your hours this week, are you going to be open today, tomorrow?
Yeah, I believe, we're open all day today. We've been open, this week or whatever. Friday, so tomorrow, I'm not sure. I believe we're open all day.
Okay.
If not, we'll post something on our Facebook or
Okay.
post something on our door or whatever, to update everyone, yeah.
Fantastic. Awesome. All right,
Yeah.
let's thank our sponsors.
Yes, Coffee Club sponsors are Meadowview Healthcare, Walmart, Salem Crossing, Hoosier Uplands, Americans for Prosperity, Mama Rosa's, Fox Pearly Wealth Management, Dr. Black's Eye Associates, Dr. Mindy Gunn, and Leader One Financial NMLS 1200.
Rick and Bubba's in Ohio!
Rick and Bubba, Rick and Bubba. Pass the gravy, please. Rick and Bubba, Rick and Bubba. Ooh, it brings me. Some days I wake up, can't believe my good